36, and you're listening to the Daily Muckraker Reports. I'm your host, Steve Niebling, and beside me is my man, Logo.
It was really good.
Today, we're talking about how sometimes we get so wrapped up in the rhetoric and juvenile attitude and temperament of Donald Trump that we forget that this man really didn't get that much done, but the guy who had is his Attorney General, Jeff Sessions, the very conservative former senator from Alabama, with a very sketchy, racist past. Now, this man, while most of us are paying attention to what Donald Trump is saying, it's hard not to.
Exactly.
Calling, countries assholes. I mean, it's hard not to get caught up in that. But while all that's going on, Jeff Sessions is attacking our First Amendment rights, sanctuary cities, immigrants. He's attacking Black people who have been victimized in academic situations by taking resources to help protect so-called white victims of affirmative action. He has doubled down on civil asset forfeitures. He has systemically managed to strip police departments of any oversight, especially those who've been accused of brutalizing people of color. It's very difficult to express just how important something like that is. And I think when we look at some of the things that Jeff Sessions has done, and this is a guy who could not get confirmed by Congress in the 80s because of racist statements that he said. But he was able to get through it in what arguably is the most racist presidential administration in modern time. I mean, we can go back. I mean, there's been some slaveholders, so let's.
100%.
But this is the same Justice Department that is saying we are no longer going to bother police if they have high incidents of killing unarmed Black people, for example. He has attacked voter ID laws, making it difficult for predominantly low-income areas that tend to vote Democrat, making it difficult for them to vote. And it goes on and on. And then I think what we had just 8 years ago.
Refresh me.
Yes, sir. And this was when President Obama was elected. He was a man who embodied and he was able to carry this message of real, sincere, true hope that we're all going to be treated equally and we're all in this together. But Obama didn't get that much done because of Republican Congress and Senate, but his Attorney General did. The same position that Jeff Sessions is in right now. Eric Holder. Look at the achievements of Eric Holder when he was the Attorney General versus the inferno that has been created by Jeff Sessions. Same-sex marriage, legalized. Voting rights, in every possible way, ensured that people's right to vote would trump any other consideration. Criminal justice reform, so we can end the mass incarceration of African Americans for once. There are countless incidents that we can point to, but I think the one that I will always remember was his response to the Ferguson Police Department after the very protracted protests that took place in that city of Missouri. And what he ended up doing was looking at the data and finding out that Black people, since Ferguson was around, Black people who came from the South looking for a better job, come to Ferguson and were never treated well by anybody.
From day one.
From day one. And it has always been an oppressive police department. So now we see where that came from. And what he said was, that kind of mentality is what breeds this kind of death at the hands of people in authority perpetuated against defenseless, vulnerable Black people.
Yeah, and when we realize it, it's too late. You know what I mean? Like, so that's like, yeah, we gotta wake up out here.
Wake up? Let's wake up the callers, because we have a lot of callers, and some of them have been waiting for a long time. So.
Yeah, and just do your own research. Like, don't believe everything you hear from face value. Like,
absolutely. Robert, hey man, thanks for calling. What's going on?
Oh man, you hit it right on the money. Everything that you're saying about Jeff Sessions is the truth.
Oh.
When that letter that Coretta Scott King sent, that was the truth.
Yeah.
And see, and people keep saying give Republicans a chance, but see, when they're out in public, like Sarah B. Huckabee, whatever her name is,
yeah, Sarah.
you know, they say different things. But when they get on Fox News, Jeff Sessions was on Fox News last night. You should have heard what he was saying, the opposite what he was saying when he be in front of that podium. Them are some dangerous people, and dangerous for Black people, and dangerous for this company.
I'm
sorry.
That is very truthful.
Yep.
Dangerous is not an overstatement. It's no hyperbole. I mean, we're seeing the systemic removal of rights and policies that have been put in place to ensure some kind of oversight. Because remember, after slavery, we should always try to learn our history.
We have to. And I like that you just brought this back up.
After slavery, we had post-Reconstruction when the North stuck in the South and made sure that the shackles were let go.
Right.
But when they left, Jim Crow came viciously.
Yes.
Hundreds, and thousands of lynchings.
And our 13th Amendment states it right in it.
That's right. The abolishment of slavery in the 13th Amendment says, except in the case of somebody violating the law.
Yes.
And that's what they used in the South to create different laws. There were kind of laws like this. For example, in most states in the South, if you weren't allowed to have a Black and white person in the same car unless you had it labeled. There are different ways to get it labeled.
Steve.
Now, if you're white, you had about a 10% penalty compared to what a Black person would face. But there were people, and there were laws that would prohibit things like whistling. And if you were whistling down the street, not at somebody, whistling down the street,
not even
enjoying
just whistling to a song, like
you
in your head,
put in prison. And then what happened is there was no oversight anymore. They lost the oversight.
Yeah.
And Jim Crow happened. 7 million Black Americans from the South, the largest congregation of people to move on their own for freedom,
at the same time,
came out of that during the Great Migration. And now you got this guy with a racist past who has done nothing but set on fire the liberties that are important to us.
Yes. His daddy was probably a slave owner. Let's do that research, Steve.
It wouldn't surprise me because when you look at his real name, you know this guy comes from some rich Southern stock.
Oh, yeah.
Jefferson B. Sessions III.
Come on.
That's right. Hey, let's go back to the phones. Rick, thanks so much for waiting. What's going on?
Hey, just wanted to call in and agree with you. I got that flu you had last week.
Oh, man, Rick.
I'm kind of getting over it.
You got to do better,
I think
Rick.
we really got to. Yeah, we got to start databasing these litigant claims after they have been in court or prosecuted. We got to look for these trends because we can't attack these issues on the basis of we hate a personality or people's history. That's hearsay. We got to get those first-party complaints, and I think keeping victims organized and updated on what's taking place or what's taking place around, the abuse of low-income litigants is also important. But when this stuff happens to people, it's nobody there. And what I notice is most people become unengaged in public advocacy because there's an aura of others not caring about what happened to you. And I think in order to instill that, we need to, change and make sure we let them know that we want to be positioned and are there to hear about what happens to them. And I would bring note to this. University of Detroit Mercy Law School is planning, I think, to be teaching citizens on how to prepare and file federal lawsuits, right?
Oh, that's great.
That recently was recently. But the issue is I could show you 5 judges that came out of University of Detroit Mercy Law School, one in particular, Judge Lynn Pierce, who these people are just as, dangerous to our justice as I'm just saying, as some of the other laws. So this stuff is good, but it does not organize the individual. This is a program, and its intention is great. But it does not organize the individuals. Where are the individuals that wanted to file these cases? Has there been any preparation? What is the line to coming into that? That's all I wanted to raise.
Rick, man, I appreciate your passion, man. I appreciate the opinion and insight.
Yeah. And the only thing I was going to say is, he said that, black people just don't care because they don't care about us. Well, they're not losing when they don't care about us. But we clearly are losing when we don't care about the system and don't care about the situations that we are put in. Because, it's not benefiting us. So we need to care.
And I think, that's one of the things that's very difficult for white people to understand when, they cringe at the idea of having white privilege is they really don't know how isolating it may feel, how, what it's like to grow up in, a mile from Alter Road, where white students are getting an amazing education and their school is crumbling.
Dominoes for lunch.
It's that kind of injustice. The idea that a child has to grow up into that and see that is so disgusting. We need to do everything we can to at least alleviate that gap in whatever way. I've always heard the argument for reparations.